How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and on YouTube. Zappy's a clown. With me, my guy, Mr. Mike Zappy, out in San Antonio, Texas. It is our Week 5, Part 1 NFL preview. But before we even go there,
Zappy, can you say that again?
Yeah, Week 5, Part 1 NFL.
5. We're already a quarter of the season done. I love football season, but I hate football season because it goes too damn fast. What you got for me, bud?
I couldn't agree anymore. I said it to many a friend today, like, damn, this season's going too fast. But how about this, Mike? Road teams get big upset victories in Game 1 of the MLB playoffs wildcard round. The Tigers, led by A.J. Hinch, going to Houston, knocking down the Astros. The Kansas City Royals behind Reagan's pitching a hell of a game, shutting out the Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore. And now, mind you, this is a year removed from their playoff failure against your Texas Rangers. So they're supposed to be acclimated and ready for October baseball. New York Mets riding a high off of the split in Atlanta, getting a massive 8-4 victory against our guy, John Olson's Milwaukee Brewers. Our other guy, Richard Dorney, higher than a kite right now. He is happy as a pig in shit. And the Padres, the only home team to win, which is no surprise to me, shutting out an exhausted Atlanta Braves team who played their 165th game today and their third game in 2 days. What are your takeaways about any of this before we move it along to our football segment?
To be 100% honest with you, every single game went exactly the way I thought it was going to go. When I look at the American League, I look at the fact that the Astros had to go up against the Triple Crown winner and Skubal, and he came out and pitched a great game today. 6 innings pitched, 6 strikeouts, and I mean, he just controlled the mound. He had complete control of his pitches. And then when you look at the Tigers over the last 60 games, they have been a great team, and they've been a great team by doing it with hitting singles and then occasionally a double. And they did it again today with continuous singles to get themselves that 3-0 lead and never look back. Same thing with the Royals. You know, I said the Royals, I think, are a team to be watching out for in the American League. And the reason why I thought they would take Game 1 is because of Cole Reagans. I mean, he was my AL Cy Young pick before the season started. And he came out and pitched a great game. I mean, to shut the Orioles out 1-0. And quite frankly, this Orioles team does not seem like the same Orioles team as last year. First of all, we're talking about a team that actually underachieved when you look at the records compared over the last 2 years. Over 100 wins last year, most wins in baseball, to this year where they finished second in division. Just a lot of things. And when you transfer over to the National League, the Mets are riding that high. The Brewers, yet again, they need that ace. They need that ace. They traded that ace away to Baltimore, who lost today in Corbin Burns. But they need that ace, and they don't have him available. And the Mets are just playing some damn good baseball right now. And as far as the Padres go, Fernando Tatis set the tone today with that massive shot to left field to give him a 2-0 lead. And the Padres, honestly, I think the Padres are going to be the biggest threat to the Dodgers, aside from the Phillies. And we're probably going to get that matchup in the ALDS of the Dodgers and Padres. And take it back to a couple of years ago when the Padres won that series. So far after day 1 of wild card, I think they all went the way they were going to go. But I will say this: Astros will bounce back. I still think they're going to win the series. I think the Royals are going to win the series. I think the Mets are going to win the series, and I think the Padres are going to win. So everyone that wants today, I think, are going to be the eventual winners of these series, with the exception of the Tigers. I'm sorry.
I hope the Tigers hold on. That's definitely good news for my New York Yankees. But having said that, I did pick the Astros to win in 2. That's obviously not going to happen. It's hard for me to just count them out yet. But who better to take them down than their former manager? So on that regard, it makes sense. We're going to see what games 2 and ultimately possibly 3 hold. I picked the Orioles to win in 3. But this is the thing. I didn't have them losing this game, and I had them potentially losing when the probable Cy Young winner for the American League, Seth Lugo, gets on the mound. So the Orioles are in a very unfavorable situation, but what they have going for them is they have the next 2 games at home. All in the wild card round being expanded from 1 play-in game to a 3-game series, they don't switch venue. As the Mets go, I mean, what more can you say, dude? I mean, if you look at their pitching, pretty much since the middle of June, they have been amongst the best starting rotations in Major League Baseball. And mind you, they have done that without Kodai Senga. That is truly incredible. A lot of people figured, the Verlander experiment didn't work out. Mad Max didn't work out. DeGrom got traded to you guys. He's in the process of getting better now. And just, right before the year ended, got some action in. So, I certainly didn't see all this wonderful stuff going on in Queens, particularly when they were hovering around 500 for a good chunk of the first half. The Padres, I agree. I actually think they're the biggest threat to the Los Angeles Dodgers because of all the familiarity. If there is a wild card team that I have to put my money on today, right now, that can go to the World Series, no problem, it is the San Diego Padres. Having said that, my American League Championship and National League Championship involved 2 New York teams. If this was a couple of years ago, I would say there's no way that the Mets are going to outdo the Phillies in a series, nor do I think the Mets could take out the Braves. Well, they obviously stood up tall in the past month against 2 nemesises that have had their number. I know the Los Angeles Dodgers would be hoping for the Mets. The Mets, however, did play well on the West Coast earlier in the year. So I do think that the Mets are going to the NLCS. I can't believe I'm saying that, but just genuinely giving you my honest take. I think the Mets are going to play the Dodgers in the NLCS, and that's where Cinderella goes home. As my Yankees go, I am happy that they figured out the 9th inning. And I believe that the New York Yankees will be facing the Cleveland Guardians, a common foe that they have seen over the years. And it's going to be good baseball because the Guardians have the kind of bullpen that they can extend games and put up a lot of zeros. The Yankees starting pitching is going to have to be strong past Garrett Cole, but I do like the Yankees to win the American League, and I believe the Dodgers should win it all. But the cool thing about picking the Dodgers is that I could honestly put the kibosh on them. We got some comments flying in. We got the basement show with Mr. Nast, our guy John Nast. Orioles choking in the playoffs again. Yes, they are, sir. Yes, they are.
Yeah, and I look at tomorrow. You're talking about Seth Lugo. He's going up against Zach Eflin, and this is the guy the Orioles traded for at the trade deadline from the Rays. And will he be able to do enough to sustain another game from the Royals? Because remember, yes, they shut out the Orioles, but the Orioles did a pretty good job of slowing down the Kansas City Royals bats too. And can they each do that for 2 consecutive days? I mean, I think Baltimore should come out and win tomorrow. If Kansas City wins tomorrow, we might have ourselves a team in the American League that was last year's Texas Rangers, and that being the Kansas City Royals. I think they're a scary team coming in. And I think that if they can get past this Baltimore team, they are going to give the New York Yankees some fits. Now, as far as Houston goes, I have Houston making the World Series, defeating the Yankees in the ALCS. It's just, for some odd reason, Houston has been New York's kryptonite going back to 2017. We're not going to talk about what happened that year, but it's just something that Houston has had their number. But Houston does have Hunter Brown pitching tomorrow, and I think that's a good matchup for him going up against Tyler Holton. But all in all, man, Frankie Montes, can you believe we're saying Frankie Montes? He has to pitch a great game for the Brewers tomorrow, or the Mets will be sending them home. And quite frankly, I think the Brewers are going to get swept in this series. I hate to say it, John. I love you, but right now, the Mets hitting, I trust it a lot more. And as far as Atlanta goes, they need Max Fried to be that Cy Young Max Fried, show up and pitch a complete gem over Joe Musgrove to have a chance. They cannot let Tatis get off early, or they cannot let Machado have a game. But, I'm excited about it, man, because come Saturday, ALDS starts. Ooh, let's go.
Yeah, last thing I want to say related to baseball before we move along, I got to give some props to 2 former Yankee pitchers, Luis Severino and Michael King. Michael King was part of the Juan Soto trade. He pitched very well today. They shut out the Atlanta Braves. Severino was good enough, solid enough in Milwaukee after having one legitimately tough frame. I feel, I'm with you pretty much. I hope the Astros lose, but there's a part of me because of our history that I do want to get through them once and for all. We're going to move it along to the NFL. Yeah, this is exciting. We've got Thursday night football. The Atlanta Falcons hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I almost actually said the Atlanta Braves again.
Braves. Well, they might be playing game 3 at the same time that the Falcons are playing on Thursday night. So, hey.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of traffic, so to speak. But in terms of the bar scene, the football scene, all of it, this game could really go either way because one thing I've seen in the early going in the NFC South is that anything's possible. The Saints probably should have won that game. They certainly had their chances, but the Atlanta Falcons persevered and, kicked their way to victory at the end. Very emotional game, very physical game. I wanted to punch my TV because Kyle Pitts couldn't get me 2 measly catches to win my ticket. But as the Falcons go, the formula is simple. You've got to get Bijan Robinson as well as Tyler Algier going. It opens up everything downfield for Kirk Cousins, for Drake London, for the aforementioned Kyle Pitts, who will probably get like 8 catches this week because I won't be dealing with him. The defense of the Falcons has been surprisingly better than I expected. As the Buccaneers go after that one blemish against Denver, coming out really flat, that same Denver team went into East Rutherford and beat the Jets. So maybe Denver's not as terrible as everybody thought going in. As the Buccaneers go, they took advantage of every weakness that the Philadelphia Eagles had, and they jumped on them.
Tackle after missed tackle after missed tackle. I mean, didn't mean to cut you off there, but
no, you're good.
That was an embarrassing showing by the Philadelphia Eagles defense.
Yeah, and were it not for Saquon Barkley damn near hitting that home run for the house, and they had a couple of stops, but no. I mean, just a piss-poor performance. I think Tampa's in Philly's heads going back to last year, too, if we're going to expand on it. And Baker Mayfield playing out of his mind for the most part. Tampa is low-key really good right now. Low-key really good. They're getting used to winning these premier matchups. And, we don't talk about them a lot on the show because – that South Division hasn't been all that respected for the last couple of years, the end of the Brady era, the beginning of the Mayfield era. But the God's honest truth is Tampa has won 3 consecutive division titles, and the year before they did that, they actually hoisted Vince Lombardi's trophy. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a playoff frequenter. And as the Eagles go, I'll be honest, they struck me as a team that is not completely buying into Nick Sirianni right now. Saquon Barkley, he's playing great football all in all. However, I'm not convinced that he's as thrilled as everybody on the outside looking in believes he is to be there. I think he took the best pay. And, with your Dallas Cowboys going through their own issues, with the Washington Commanders ascending, and with the quarterback problems that my New York Giants have, many would feel that this is the golden opportunity for Philly to take full advantage, and they have not. And, they were fortunate to win the game in Brazil. I'm going to say that. Green Bay let them off the hook. They really had to grind out the game against the Saints. And I gave them credit for that because that was a tough, hard-fought victory. But I am not convinced that the Eagles are in a good place right now. I really am not. And
and it's a good thing that they got the bye week this weekend because this team definitely needs to regroup. And as crazy as it sounds to say that, it's only week 5. And out of all the NFL teams, they need to regroup fast. They need to figure it out. You know, yes, they have been missing A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith did get knocked out last week, which resulted in him missing this past weekend, which, you know, you take away two of Jalen Hurts' top targets, it hurts them. But with that being said, Jalen Hurts has not exactly been playing at the highest level since he got that contract, as he's leading the NFL in turnovers since the start of last season. And then I think it also ties into the whole Nick Sirianni concept. And not only that, I think the whole Kellen Moore concept, I don't think that team has bought into Kellen Moore. A lot of us Cowboys fans tried warning the Eagles that, hey, Kellen Moore is not this OC that you should be praising. This is the same OC that Eagles fans were mocking when he was our OC. And of course, now he's the OC of Philly. Oh, he's great. He's a good OC. No, he does not have the pieces in that offense, in my opinion, to run it. But now going to the South game with the Buccaneers Falcons, what I love about this game is it's not often that in week 5 an NFL team gets the opportunity to take a complete stranglehold on the division. And if the Buccaneers come out on top tomorrow or Thursday night, we're talking about the Bucs going to be in 4-1, the Falcons 2-3. I think the Saints will be 2-3 as they travel to Kansas City this week. I mean, their only loss is to a non-conference opponent in the Broncos. Falcons, same thing. Their 2 losses are against non-conference opponents. But, man, I love the matchup from top to bottom on both sides of the ball. You look at the Falcons and the additions they made leading up to the season with Matthew Judon, as well as bringing in Justin Simmons. These are key guys to bring in, especially when Justin Simmons is the kind of guy that's going to be able to go over the top on a deep play to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin and get that necessary pick. Matthew Judon, a guy that was brought in to get pressure on the quarterback, as we saw them pass on Dallas Turner in the draft for the likes of Michael Penix. Turned that around with the Buccaneers. You know, a lot of people are waiting for Rachaad White to show up, but Bucky Irving has definitely stepped up his game, and he has become a force to be reckoned with. And you look at Baker Mayfield, I mean, he's having himself an MVP season. As crazy as we talked about this last week, and we're going to continue to talk about this throughout the season. But like you said, this Buccaneers team is a very good team. But this week, I have to go with the home field advantage. I have to go with the simple fact that Atlanta, against their NFC opponents so far this year, have been playing some damn good football. And for some reason, you know, if there's games you're going to lose, always lose the AFC games or your cross-conference opponents. I really do think this Atlanta team is going to come out ready to ball. I look at this game, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a higher scoring game, to be quite honest with you. I think we're going to see Bijan and Tyler Algier, like you said, get off and running. But I look for Kirk Cousins to make those key throws late in the game the way he did against Philly. And I look for Kirk Cousins to lead this Atlanta Falcons team to a game-winning touchdown drive with a final score of 33-28. And as they will take possession of first place due to the tiebreaker.
Not as high scoring as you got, but not too far off the path. I've got them winning this thing 30-27, similarly to how they won their last game with a cool field goal to walk it off. I do think that there's going to be a Baker Mayfield turnover that really screws the Buccaneers in this one. And the funny thing is, with the narrative about Kirk Cousins not playing well in primetime, he's going to win twice in a couple of weeks, a few weeks apart. You know, twice on primetime, changing that narrative. And it's so early in the year, and that's part of the reason I like Atlanta too, because I don't see anybody running away just yet. Slow down, Tampa. I like the Falcons to get this win. Zappy, excuse me, the alarm's going off in Noah's room, and I'm going to have to hit that thing to make sure that he doesn't get woken up. Do your thing, pal. I will be right back.
You gotta change that battery. That's what you got to do. But yeah, as I was saying, and the other thing we really haven't talked about with this game is something that we talked about when the Falcons took on the Eagles, and that was Kirk Cousins and his primetime showing. We talked about how on the road, he wasn't as good of a primetime quarterback, but playing at home, he's actually a much better quarterback. And I think with the fact that he's playing a home game against this Buccaneers defense, it will work in his favor that he'll be able to move the ball up and down the field and get some good scoring possessions. Nice alarm there, Richie. Ooh. I don't think Richie knows that actually hurts my ear. But no, and one of the other key matches I'm looking at is actually Kyle Pitts. And I look at this as a game for Kyle Pitts to be able to finally have himself the kind of game that many fantasy owners have been waiting for. You know, week in, week out, everyone said that with the addition of Kirk Cousins, that Kyle Pitts would finally have himself that breakout season, and we're still waiting for it. But tomorrow night or Thursday night seems like that game that Kyle Pitts can come out and finally put up those numbers to lead him. That was very loud, by the way. That hurt my ear.
That was loud. Last thing about the Sirianni has lost the locker room, and you lose veterans like Kelsey and Cox.
That's exactly what I spoke about leading up to the season. That's exactly the reason why I said the Eagles were going to be the third place finisher this year, is I fully expected Nick Sirianni to be fired by around week 8, because I think the losses of Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey are much bigger losses than anybody else realizes, because of the leadership in the locker room, because of the leadership on the field. And nothing against Cam Jurgens. I think he's a hell of a good center. Jason Kelsey, the way he can read defensive lines and linebackers, that's something that you can't coach to everyone. That's just something that you have it or you don't have it.
Yeah, and the brotherly shove, the tush push, whatever they want to call it, doesn't hit the same way this particular season.
Yeah, and Nick Sirianni, I mean, I think it goes back to last year, 10-1, and then to completely have one of the biggest collapses in NFL history. I think that goes without saying. And you know, you look at the way he responds to teammates or to his players on the field and the aggressive nature he shows towards them. I don't think it's exactly a head coach quality. And, you know, when I look at this Eagles team, there's too much damn talent on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball for players to be quitting on him already. He's got to go. And I'll be honest with you, I think Vic Fangio, I think he's got to go as well. I mean, he exactly hasn't been wowing me completely. What I will say is I like his ability to, the way he's been stopping runs on 31 and 4th and 1, especially when they try to run up the middle on Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. But no, with this Eagles team, man, I really do think that there's more questions than answers right now. And like I said, it's a good week to have the bye week, but I mean, you guys got to get this figured out and get it figured out fast, because it's crazy as it sounds, Washington is playing that 4th place schedule. They have the opportunity to run away with this division in the next coming weeks. And we're going to be looking at a different division winner aside from the Cowboys or the Eagles. And that's just the truth of it right now. What else you got for me?
I hope I am done with that. We're going to move it over to London. The Minnesota Vikings hosting the New York Jets. The New York Jets offense sputtered in a big way in a 10-9 embarrassing loss at home to the Denver Broncos, looking very Jet-like, so to speak. The Vikings went into Green Bay, lit up the Packers early, and staved off a big Jordan Love comeback. Sappy, I am so sorry. I'm going to have to move Noah to my room until I get this, because it's going to wake this kid up.
Oh, we're talking about the Packers or the Vikings and the Jets game. All right. So we saw the Vikings get off to a very commanding lead on the Packers this past week, 28-0, 28-7. And we saw a comeback by Jordan Love, a comeback, especially coming off of his knee injury where he had his sprained MCL. We didn't know how long he was going to be. He tried playing last week. Of course, Malik Willis played the last 2 weeks, and Malik Willis actually played some damn good football, leading them to victories in both games. Yes, let's take the competition into consideration here, but a victory is a victory. And then you look at the Jets. I mean, you're back home. You're coming off of a big win. You're hosting the Denver Broncos, a team that's much lesser than you. And you laid a complete egg. I mean, the offense was non-existent. Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, the guy, the attitude, where was he at? I mean, yes, it was raining, but a lot of this Jets team, that was the kind of game that can really throw your season under. And when I look at the Jets and how they came out, especially having the opportunity to win with Greg Zuerlein and him missing that 51-yarder, I believe it was, That was a big miss. And now you're having to face a Vikings team that is reeling 4-0 coming on. I mean, they did have a tough second half against the Packers, having to hold on to that victory, but nevertheless, they're still 4-0. And I look at this Vikings team as being a very strong team, being a team that is not to be taken for granted. And this Jets team that is having a lot of question marks. When is Hassan Reddick going to come back? Is Hassan Reddick going to come back, or will he be traded to the Raiders for the likes of Devontae Adams and something like that? You know, and this is the kind of game where if the Jets go in to Europe and lose this over in Tottenham Stadium, the Jets are going to be, hey, we need to pull the trigger for a guy like Devontae Adams, because quite frankly, right now, the receivers Aaron Rodgers have are good, but this offense is definitely underperforming. When you have Breece Hall, Braden Allen coming along, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Alan Lazard, I mean, you need more points. We saw the hug that never happened from Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers. Give us a 2-touchdown lead. We'll take care of the rest. This offense is underperforming right now. And quite frankly, I don't know if Sauce Gardner is enough for this Jets defense to slow this Vikings offense down. Can't hear you.
I'll be honest. You traded for Hassan Reddick. You don't want to pay him. And his presence, or absence, I should say, is making you feel it. His presence is needed right now. He is the missing piece to that defense, and they are suffering because he is not there. As the Vikings go, I mean, what more can you say? Aaron Jones has been a godsend in that backfield, and he and Chandler are doing their thing. Their offensive line is a lot better than advertised coming into the year. Sam Darnold, even if J.J. McCarthy was healthy, gives them the best chance to win right now. And you have JJ, you have Addison, you have some great play calling on the offensive side of the ball, and TJ Hawkinson hasn't even played it down yet. Wait until he gets healthy. This Vikings team is going to be about to be 5-0, and Sam Darnold, for the second time in his career, is going to defeat his former team, the team that drafted him, the New York Jets. Sam Darnold looks like a completely different quarterback with competency around him, because let's not forget that when Sam Darnold was running things with the New York Jets, they were a piss-poor organization led by Adam Gase at the head coaching position, a guy that had no business being a head coach in this league.
Yeah, you know, and it's crazy. You talk about head coaches, especially with the New York Jets. I mean, we may be witnessing a scenario where maybe Robert Saleh is better suited to be a defensive coordinator. I mean, the last couple of years, we gave him the benefit of the doubt. We saw them draft Zach Wilson high at number 2. He was supposed to be the Jets' savior. That did not work out. We see them last year go get Aaron Rodgers. He goes down the 4th play of opening Monday night, 9/11. And, of course, their season goes into shambles. And, hey, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. We're not going to fire you because you didn't have a quarterback. But now you've had Aaron Rodgers, and we are still talking about the same thing with this team. Robert Saleh might just be better off being a defensive coordinator in the NFL. I don't know if teams, or his players, should I say, respond to him as a head coach. I really don't. I mean, you talk about coaches on the hot seat. I'm not saying his seat is hot, but it's definitely warming up.
Yeah, and the other caveat to this is that Aaron Rodgers' man is Nathaniel Hackett. Aaron Rodgers would be happy as hell to have Hackett get bumped up to head coach. I don't think he and Saleh are seeing things from the same lens. You still got the Lazard connection that seems to be working. But I will say this, when you think about who Garrett Wilson is supposed to be versus who Garrett Wilson is right now, the trajectory is not where I would expect it at this juncture of his career. I gave him a pass because of who his quarterback was. But I actually am wondering if between the ears he is regressing and that Rodgers is not enhancing his game. And I'll be honest with you, I don't believe that Aaron Rodgers is in business for the New York Jets. I think Aaron Rodgers is in business for himself.
$250 million. Yeah, he's in business for himself. I'm sorry. Garrett Wilson last year or the last 2 years, I mean, he was offensive rookie of the year. Last year with multiple quarterbacks, still put up phenomenal numbers. And this year, he's not putting up those numbers. I mean, and you could talk about timing not being there. I'm sorry, but when you're a receiver having to go through quarterback after quarterback after quarterback and still performing at a high level, maybe it's not necessarily the receiver and maybe it's the quarterback. You know how I feel about Aaron Rodgers. I don't like the guy. I have never liked the guy, not taking anything away from his talent. I think he is the most talented quarterback to ever play the game. But this is not the same Aaron Rodgers we are talking about from years ago, that he would stand back there, sling that ball, snap that wrist, and it was gone. He'd stand there, go get out of the pocket and make some incredible throws. I know this because he did it against my Cowboys in 2016 with an incredible throw in the playoffs to set them up for the game-winning field goal. We've seen it time and time again, but Aaron Rodgers just does not look like he is that quarterback anymore that is playing with that fire to win in the NFL. It's more like, hey, I want my money, give me my money, and let me go hallucinate in the offseason or whatever the hell it was he was doing. I like this Vikings team. I really do. I think this Vikings team has got a legit offense. Sam Darnold, in my opinion, is the front runner for NFL MVP. He would be the front runner for, yeah, that's a good point too there, Nast. He is showing his age. That is a very good point. But, you know, back to the Vikings, I look at Sam Darnold. I think he is the front runner for NFL MVP. I mean, this is a guy that has been written off, was with the 49ers last year. Obviously, he didn't really play, but he has kind of turned into that quarterback that has been thrown around, and he, like Baker Mayfield, has found himself a good situation. And he was doing this week 1 and 2 without the likes of Jordan Addison. Week 3, Jordan Addison comes back. Week 4, Jordan Addison gets involved more. And now, like Richie said, TJ Hawkinson is right around the corner. This running game by the Vikings is very good. Their defense is actually playing some pretty good football. I mean, even in the second half against the Packers, it wasn't that bad. But I like this Vikings team to go out there and, you know, the Jets have a good defense. Will McDonald is top 5 in sacks right now. Their first-round pick from last year, but you need someone to be rushing the passer on the other side, and I think that's a huge issue for the New York Jets. I look at Sauce Gardner. Who are you going to cover? He's going to cover Jetta. I look at Jordan Addison to have himself another big game, even Naylor to have himself some targets in this one. I see you're going 28-10 with the Vikes. I have something similar. I'm going 27-13. Vikings beating the Jets. Right now, I think this Jets team is like the Eagles, where they just have more questions, and it's going to bring the question, is Davante Adams, are the Jets going to trade a conditional second-round pick and, let's say, Hassan Reddick to the Raiders to bring Davante Adams? Is that the answer that offense needs to get them going? Personally, I don't think so. But, you know, it is the NFL. Time will tell. We talk about Davante. He does have that chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, but I think it's just a little more than that. Can't hear you.
This got to be the most frustrating show I've done in a while. Vikings 30, Jets 17. Yeah, that thing was like piercing my eardrums. I had to mute my mic. I think we finally got it off, but I moved Noah into my room.
Got to pull those batteries.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't need a smoke detector. What's the worst that's going to happen?
The Buffalo Bills at 3-1 are traveling into Houston to take on the 2-2 Texans. A late rally ensured the Texans would keep division rival Jacksonville winless. The Bills, after a torrid start, came down to earth in that drubbing against the Ravens, where Josh Allen did not throw a touchdown pass, and the offense just looked very much out of sync. I'm going to say this now. The availability of Joe Mixon is going to be huge for the Texans to serve at home and have their best chance of winning. Dameon Pierce might be back, but Cam Akers isn't it. A huge side story here is Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen playing each other after the controversial divorce in Western New York. I am not too alarmed with the Baltimore Ravens slapping around the Bills. It's an early season matchup. Baltimore needed the game more. Bills go back to the drawing board. I still like what they're building over there post Stephon Diggs, but this is an interesting caveat. Von Miller has some situation going back to last season. Now he is getting a month-long ban, a suspension, I should say, for off-the-field personal conduct policies. So now you're already down a litany of defensive players. So is this going to be a situation where Buffalo has to get smoking and moving into a direction where they start winning more games in the shootout fashion, as they have done earlier in the Josh Allen era? And I'm going to say perhaps this is one of those games where it's going to be a battle of both quarterbacks going back and forth. Having said all that, I think the Buffalo Bills are going to show up. I think they're going to put on their best game, and I think they're going to defeat the Houston Texans in a bit of a shootout. I got Buffalo winning this thing 33-27, and I think it might not be a defensive coordinator's dream what they're going to see, because both these teams have been having their fair share of issues, tackling in the open field, things of that nature. But at the end of the day, Josh Allen is a better quarterback than C.J. Stroud, at least for now. And I think that after getting humbled by Baltimore, I think the Bills are going to step up even without Von Miller, and they're going to go out there and win an important game on the road.
Yeah, I look at this game and I kind of see it the opposite way, to be honest with you. And I also will say this. This is the type of game for the Buffalo Bills that, yes, it is week 5, but they are coming off an embarrassing beating at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens, at the hands of one Derrick Henry, really. But with the Texans right now, Joe Mixon, still don't know if he's playing. Dameon Pierce, still don't know if he's playing. Cam Akers, can he handle that kind of workload? I don't think so. Then I flip it to the other side of the ball. Von Miller, of course, or to the other team. Von Miller is out. Khalil Shakir, is he going to be playing this week? This is the kind of game, like the Jets, I think the Buffalo Bills are going to be in the market for a wide receiver here in the coming weeks by the November 5th trade deadline. And I think Devontae Adams is one of those players that they're going to try to acquire. Maybe it's an Amari Cooper. Maybe it's Deontay Johnson from Carolina. But, Buffalo, they had a horrible loss, and usually good teams off of losses like that come back and play good football. Houston, however, had, they figured out a way to win the game against Jacksonville, but Jacksonville should have won that game. And right now, offensively for Houston, when you can't really rely on the running game, and the fact that Tank Dell might not be playing, and also throw in a little bit of Stephon Diggs, and I think that defense is going to be teeing off on him for some little odd reason. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game, and I think Buffalo is going to go in there with a defensive mindset and an offensive mindset to slow the game down. Also, I think teams are figuring out that, hey, we take Dalton Kincaid out of the mix for the Buffalo Bills offense, we can slow down Khalil Shakir. I mean, then you can really do numbers against that offense and Josh Allen and James Cook. I think it's going to be a much slower game. I am looking for the Buffalo Bills to go into Houston and pull this one off 23-20. But I do think it's going to be a damn good fist fight going on.
You got it on the lower side. I have a feeling that they're going to open it up. And I think Curtis Samuel may very well have his first signature game as a Buffalo Bill. I do like what Keon Coleman's doing in his young career. This game is not going to offer nearly as much offense. I might actually say I'm surprised if this game even has a touchdown scored on offense. The Miami Dolphins at 1-3 going into Gillette Stadium taking on the 1-3 New England Patriots. The Dolphins' offense has been a hot mess since the injury to Tua Tagovailoa. They are coming off 3 bad losses, most recently a beating to the Tennessee Titans. For 2 consecutive years, the Tennessee Titans have beaten Miami on the road. I don't think too many people could say that they expected that. Patriots most definitely are in the process of a rebuild. Rookie quarterback Drake May got some action last week. He did all right. This is definitely a game the Patriots can win, and I'm going to take it a step further. This is a game the Patriots will win. Why will they win this game? For one, this is a perfect scenario for New England to get a win. It's going to be a fist fight. It's going to be, a lot of field position. But I say to myself, who right now is in a better place as a team? Believe it or not, the New England Patriots are. because the Patriots are actually competing. They almost beat Seattle a few weeks back. They got a win over the Bengals. You know, yeah, the Jets kicked their ass, but the thing is, New England is competing right now. And I believe that until the Miami Dolphins make a trade for a quarterback, if they are going to make a trade for a quarterback, they're basically forfeiting this season to be an unexpected high draft pick to continue to add to what is deemed a very talented roster. Raheem Mostert, who has definitely fallen quite a few steps behind Devin Achan because of the chest injury, he might be a go. It's just that I don't like this Miami team right now at all. I got the Patriots winning a low-scoring affair. Patriots 12, Dolphins 10.
Oh man, you got a little better than me. Look, Monday Night Football. There was an exciting college game being played between the Seahawks and Lions, and then there was a very, very boring Thursday Night Football style of game. And you allowed Tennessee, the Tennessee Titans. That was supposed to be the
game that you get right in or something.
Yes, the get right game. And we're talking about Huntley, who has been a Pro Bowl quarterback while he was with Baltimore.
That was a strange nod that year too, by the way.
It was. But, nevertheless, he's a good quarterback, but he's still learning the system. He missed Tyreek Hill a couple of times. Jalen Waddle has been non-existent this year. The two of them combined have one receiving touchdown. One. You talk about Miami shipping it in. How do you like these apples? What if we're talking about Miami trading Tyreek Hill back to Kansas City? Because right now, I don't think Tyreek Hill's happy there anymore. And quite frankly, I hope we have, but I think we have seen the last of Tua. And Tyreek Hill wants that contract, but if his quarterback is going to be Skylar Thompson, Huntley, a rookie next year, he's not going to – he's going to be a locker room cancer. This Miami Dolphins team, also, their fans have been screaming, run the damn ball, and they have not been able to do that. And not to mention the injuries on both sides of the ball. Jalen Phillips going out on Monday night as well. I mean, Miami, if there's a team, while the Jaguars are the only donut of the NFL, I would take the Jaguars to win 99 out of 99 games against the Dolphins if they played each other every week.
And oddly enough, that's the Dolphins' only win was against the Jaguars.
Yeah. No, I don't like the Dolphins right now. I don't. And I really do think that, hey, you should have never paid Tua. Let's get that straight. We saw the concussions twice. We saw them. They were concussions that made every NFL concerned that not just for him, but his well-being, his future, his brain. And then we see it again. And it's almost like, we have players talking about it's time to retire. Former greats that have had concussions, but never at that level that Tua has had them. Yes, it's only his third concussion, but when you are sitting there looking crippled on the field, when you're sitting there looking like you just got knocked out by Mike Tyson, that's scary. I hope and I think we have seen the last of Tua, and I think this Miami Dolphins team needs to blow it up now. Tyreek Hill, he is a player.
Isn't it amazing how quickly this all happened? Now, this is the thing with Kansas City. Financially, can they take on Hill's contract?
Absolutely. Absolutely they can, because one thing's for sure, they moved on from Ladarius Sneed. Let's not forget about that. They signed Chris Jones. They haven't given Patrick Mahomes that new contract. They're going to give him that new contract, which is going to free up money next year, the following year, to bring in another talent like that. So Mahomes' contract is getting ready to start jumping, but this team knows how to work the salary cap as well. But
it's kind of called for also because of the fact of the Rice injury. I'm not quite sure if that happens. I have a funny feeling that maybe Devontae Adams ends up there. But this is the other thing. Are the Raiders willing to trade him to a hated division rival?
To the Chiefs. I was like, the Dolphins are not. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said earlier in our group text, they won a second and something else. The Kansas City Chiefs, they waived that first round pick. You're going for 3 in a row. You have the best quarterback in the NFL, arguably in NFL history. I mean, he is on pace to be the greatest of all time.
But
Let's be real.
if you're the Dolphins, do you feel like it's enough for what you're giving up?
I mean, at this point, I would much rather get something right now instead of holding on to him next year.
The Dolphins are in a really weird place because it's like you invested in Tua. You have a nice wide receiver duo, considered a top 5 wide receiver duo. You have a decent running game when they're healthy. But it's like, it just seems like everything has just been shattered for the Dolphins. And I'm saying to myself, who's going to be around for this re-pickup? I mean, is Mike McDaniel even going to survive this?
No, I don't think Mike McDaniel. Well, I mean, he just got that contract extension. Maybe he does because, like Robert Saleh, he's probably going to get the benefit of the doubt that, hey, we have had an explosive offense the last couple of years with Tua under center. He knows that offense. He understands Mike McDaniel's offense to a T. And when you look at quarterbacks across the league that could do it, Brock Purdy is obviously
he almost broke the NFL record for most points in the game last year, and McDaniel actually called off the dogs.
And, and I said I think Trey Lance makes sense for Mike McDaniel. If there's a guy that can fix Trey, I do believe it's McDaniel. But right now, I look at this team. I think they've got to move on from Tyreek. I think they've got to trade some pieces and kind of rebuild fast. But as far as this game goes, you have, what was it, 17-10 or?
I have it 12-10.
12-10. I look at this. I think the Patriots get themselves that lone touchdown, or Ramondre Stevenson rushing touchdown. But give me the Patriots to win an ugly game, 16-6.
Yikes. We have the Carolina Panthers and the Chicago Bears. Why does this game matter? Because of the fact that these two, with the exception of the Minnesota Vikings and the Dallas Cowboys, might be responsible for the biggest grand larceny in the history of the NFL. When the Chicago Bears were able to exploit the stupidity of the Carolina front office, who over-invested draft capital to get Bryce Young. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bears picked up the likes of Rome Odunze as well as his quarterback, Caleb Williams out of USC. As the game goes, the Carolina Panthers are a little more respectable with Andy Dalton under center. But having said that, they're still a pretty bad team. And while I am not sold on the Chicago Bears yet because they have been very fortunate in the ways that they have been able to win their games, I think the Bears are going to do enough to win here. And I've got DeAndre Swift actually having a signature game here. And I think Caleb Williams is going to be able to undress that Carolina secondary and probably play his best game as a pro. I've got the Bears putting up some points here. 34 Chicago, 20 Carolina. Carolina will hang and possibly get shut out in the second half.
Yeah. And, I look at Carolina last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. They played a hell of a good game, to be honest with you. Obviously, it was a home game. It was a game that mattered more to Andy Dalton as he was playing against the team that drafted him. So he did come out and have himself a good game. But that Panthers defense right now, they have way too many question marks. And, you flip it to the other side with the Chicago Bears. They had themselves a good game last week. DeAndre Swift had a good game, had that nice 31-yard touchdown run. But if there's a guy that I look at that is going to have his coming out party, this is the game where I think Rome Odunze is going to show up and put up some numbers, And yeah, I do think Caleb Williams, that he finally
from your mouth to God's ears, because just like my New York Football Giants, my fantasy team should be 3-1. Instead, we are 1-3. You can thank a Saquon Barkley drop for that, and you can thank me choosing the Chiefs defense over the Los Angeles Chargers. I lost by decimal points this past week. I should be 3-1.
I mean, look at my players that are underperforming. Sam Laporta has yet to score a touchdown this year. Brandon Ayuk, where the hell are you? Garrett Wilson, I already talked about that situation. Who's my other player that's not performing right now?
I figured out what's messing up Ayuk.
Yeah, it's his attitude mouth.
Oh, no, I was going to say it's his wallet. It's messing up his speed out of his routes.
He's got a heavy limp on one side. Maybe he's got to spread that money out.
Yeah.
But back to the game. No, I think the Bears are going to come out and have themselves a fun game. This is the type of game when you're coming off of a good victory that you're going to host arguably one of the worst teams in the NFL. I do think Carolina's going to come out early and hang in there, but I think the Carolina Panthers are going to take off late. Give me 27-17 Chicago. Caleb Williams has himself 2 touchdown passes. Roma Dunze gets one. Cole Kmet, I believe, gets the other one. And DeAndre Swift, I think he also gets a touchdown this game. But I think this Bears team is slowly starting to figure it out. But I will say this, if they don't win, the Vikings do win, Bears, we could pretty much go ahead and take them off the list of teams that can make the playoffs this year.
Yeah. The Cleveland Browns traveling to the nation's capital to take on the surprising 3-1 Washington Commanders, NFC leading Washington Commanders. Quarterback Jaden Daniels is the toast of the town right now. The Commanders are off to their best start in decades and their most promise in decades. The Browns miss injured running back Nick Chubb. He's a big part of what they do. He's a big part of their identity. And they may be truly regretting letting Baker Mayfield go and paying Deshaun Watson. Amari Cooper, you mentioned him earlier in the show, could definitely be a trade candidate at the deadline. This is a Cleveland team that is going nowhere fast. And I have a ton of respect for their head coach, Kevin Stefanski. I have a ton of respect for Myles Garrett. But this is a team that just looks like they are tired already. They are not pleased with the way that any of their trajectory, their locker room, nothing is working for them right now. I expect the Commanders, even though the Commanders do have a vulnerable secondary, they have been fortuitous because they have not really played anybody that has been able to completely exploit them. Daniel Jones had one of his better games against them in week 2, but we decided not to bring a kicker with us for that one. Joe Burrow was able to exploit that secondary, but they got outscored. Baker Mayfield had a good game against that secondary. This is my bottom line as far as I'm concerned here. Deshaun Watson does not have what it takes to take care of what has to be done downfield, similar to Daniel Jones's issues out in East Rutherford. I've got the Commanders winning this thing 27-17, and I've got Brian Robinson having a decent enough game. And I think the old man Zach Ertz is going to find the end zone in this one. The Commanders are really feeling good about themselves. They should be feeling good about themselves. And things are happening quick for DQ out there. And just wait until they get enough draft capital and free agency additions to actually fix that back half of the defense. They're going to be even better.
Yeah, and when I look at this Commanders team, first of all, I thought they were going to be a good team coming out, but you also have to look at the fact that who they have played on their schedule so far. And yes, they're 3-1. Their lone loss is to the first place Buccaneers. They beat the Giants, they beat the Bengals, and then they beat the Cardinals. All teams that have 1 win. So 3 wins combined. You're now facing another team that has 1 win. You in the NFL, Dallas has been beneficial of that before. The Eagles have been beneficial of that before. But when you play a 4th place schedule, you play the schedule that's given before you. For this Commanders team, I look at this as a game that they should come out. I mean, Jaden Daniels is having himself, he had himself the greatest first month in NFL history, whether it was by a rookie or just by a veteran, completing 82% of his passes. I mean, that's unheard of.
Yeah, Elias Sports Bureau, when they broke down that metric, I was like, damn. And we've been watching football for a very long time. You took the words out of my mouth, Zap. You said it best. When you finish last, you draw 4th place schedules. And now that the Commanders actually have the talent, they could take advantage of that schedule because in the previous years, they have not had enough overall talent. And as much as I respect their previous coach as a human being, Riverboat Ron, he had to go. Dan Quinn is the right man for this job right now. And with Dan Snyder out, this is a completely different organization right now. And they are feeling good about themselves. Should be 2-2. However, they're 3-1.
They're 3-1. Giants, if you would have had a kicker suit up, yeah, you would have won that game. But anyways, this is another team that I believe is in the market that they need to upgrade their receiving position. They need someone opposite of Terry McLaurin. And, Devontae Adams, I think, is going to be tied to this team.
Is there any way that you could see him opposite McLaurin? That would be dirty.
Absolutely. They have the cap space this year and next year to make that contract happen. We know that they were trying to go after Brandon Ayuk before the season started. They know they need another receiver. They're a receiver away from being a very potent offense. Let's put it that way. Brian Robinson has been running the ball great for this team. Dan Quinn in that defense has been playing pretty well. Jaden Daniels is a stud. Now for 2 consecutive years, the number 2 pick is outplaying the number 1 pick when we kept saying the number 2 pick should have been the number 1 pick. Washington, if there's a time.
I will never understand in what world that any
It's all
NFL
about
scout, when any NFL scout could look you in the face and say that Caleb Williams is a better choice to lead an organization than Jaden Daniels. Look at what they did in college. Look at the competition they played in college.
It's all about who is going to put butts in the seats. That's why Caleb went number 1. That's why Bryce went number 1. And time again, it's proven to be wrong. But Washington, you're playing that schedule. You have the Browns this week, a game you should and will win. But the test comes next week when they go to Baltimore. Then they have a week off again with the Panthers. But then after that, the schedule begins to get brutal for them.
And this is an important game because you don't want to squander an opportunity, because let's not forget that at different junctures of the year, the Commanders' offensive line has been lackadaisical and lost concentration in certain moments. They had moments of lack of concentration against the Buccaneers, against the G-men, not so much against the Bengals. The Bengals could not generate anything defensively there, but the point is that this is a game you got to win when you're trying to be that next good team, because they lose here and then you lose to Baltimore, it could kind of change the trajectory of your season as the schedule picks up. Yeah, very quickly.
Very quick.
And I look at Cleveland still has a good defense. Can't discount that.
Yeah, no, Cleveland's got a good defense, but honestly, I think Cleveland's defense has been underperforming for the most part this year. When the Giants played the Browns, I had said that I have the Giants upsetting them. I still took the
certainly
Giants,
did.
But Idris was firm on it, taking the score of 18-16. I thought the Giants were going to be able to outplay Cleveland because I look at the biggest enigma with this team, not enigma, but the biggest enigma with this team, it's Deshaun Watson. He is, he, like Aaron Rodgers, I do not believe is playing for the team, but rather he's playing for his pocketbook. He has not looked like the Deshaun Watson of Houston once. Not once. No. And, when you're unable to put up points and you're facing a team that has shown, 42 points, 38 points, Washington can score and they can score in bunches. I think they're going to do that again this week. I look at Washington to put up another 30-point game. I think they're going to win this game pretty handily. Give me 34-17. I think, and then also in regards to Cleveland, buddy of mine out of Dallas, rumblings are that possibly we might be seeing a reunion with that one Mr. Amari Cooper coming back to Dallas wearing the star. Something I hope that happens.
Well, when you consider that they basically gave him away next to nothing, and it was one of those things where it's like they hated doing it, but at the time they felt they had to. That is an interesting way to make it right, because God's honest truth is you certainly don't want him coming back to the East playing for the other guys, your longtime rival in Washington. Right. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Who knows? Amari Cooper might start the game as a Brown and finish as a Commander. You never know.
Crazier things have happened in this league. The Baltimore Ravens renewing a pretty good rivalry against the Cincinnati Bengals, who finally got their first win. Let me correct that. They are actually 1-3. The Cincinnati Bengals did what they needed to do, which was finally complete 4 quarters. Granted, they played the lowly Panthers. You said it at the top of the hour. Derrick Henry coming off a mammoth game that made you remember the 2019 playoffs when he damn near took the Tennessee Titans to the Super Bowl. It's something that I was waiting to see happen in Tennessee, and if it would happen, because in Baltimore, because my biggest concern over there has been that Lamar Jackson naturally is going to take close to 30% of the action away from Henry. It goes without saying that when you add such a dynamic offensive player alongside a dynamic quarterback, there's going to be some growing pains. I'm supposed to say that the Bengals are going to find a way to win this game and it's a division rival and yeah. No, I'm not going to say that. I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to go in there and they're going to kick some ass. I think Joe Burrow is going to get hit early and often. And I just don't like this matchup right now. I was not high on the Ravens a couple of weeks ago. I'm starting to get a little more warmer to what they've done over the course of the last 2 weeks. I still don't think that they're good enough to get where they're going without Patrick Queen. I think that was a big loss. But I must say, after what I saw them do to the Buffalo Bills last week and going against a Cincinnati team that even though they won, they didn't exactly look all that impressive against Carolina, because, you got to take into consideration the opponent. I don't know how the Bengals are going to slow down this Baltimore run game. If they do that, they have a chance to win, but I don't see it. And I don't like Cincinnati's chances if they have to get into another shootout either. I like the Ravens O-line a hell of a lot more than I like the Bengals O-line. And because of that, I think the Bengals are going to have a long day yet again. Baltimore Ravens 30. Cincinnati Bengals 23. 31-20. Give me 31-23, an 8-point victory for the road team.
Yeah, as crazy as this sounds,
I overestimated the Bengals coming in. I'm just going to keep it real.
No, I don't think it was an overestimation. I think the loss of Joe Mixon definitely has shown to hurt.
I didn't think it was, and it really has.
And, sometimes you need that game, that get-right game. They got it against the Panthers, but Zach Moss and Chase Brown, I think, is going to be the key for this team to keep moving forward. When you talk about the Bengals and their passing attack, I mean, we know what they have with Jamar Chase. We know what they have with T. Higgins. Joe Burrow and T. Higgins are still getting their chemistry down together, as this is only
not to mention their
game.
Their newer receiver. I cannot pronounce that kid's name to save my life. Io Savit. I don't know.
Yeah. Andre. We'll go with Andre.
Andre I.
Yeah, but it's funny about this game because it is a battle of, all right, Derrick Henry right now. I know it's early. But Derrick Henry, in my opinion, is going to break 2,000 yards rushing this year. Will he set the?
And who's the last guy to do that?
Yeah, he was a Raven.
That's right.
And Derrick Henry right now is on pace to rush for 21 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, in my opinion, is going to put himself in the MVP conversation. Derrick Henry has shown that with the proper diet, you can go for a long time, especially as a running back. The last guy that did it was Adrian Peterson. So you look at Baltimore's ability to run the ball, Cincinnati's inability to stop the run. And on the reverse side, Cincinnati's ability to throw the ball and Baltimore's inability to stop the pass.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this might be a game where Baltimore's going to get up early and often, but Cincinnati is going to, if they have to go away from Chase Brown, if they have to go away from Zach Moss and rely only on Joe Burrow's arm, I think they lose this game bigger than as if it was a closer game. Baltimore came out last week, punched Buffalo in the mouth, and they punched them early. We saw Derrick Henry run for a long touchdown, and I mean, that guy is a bulldozer.
It got to a point where, like, it just looked like Buffalo didn't want to tackle him anymore.
I don't want to tackle him. Find me. I bet you anything. Ray Lewis, while one of the best at his position, would not want to tackle Derrick Henry. But we saw what Eddie George did to him.
Yeah, we certainly did. At this moment, I got to give a shout out to one guy. Tate Crowder, 9/11, 2022, hit sticking Derrick Henry. One of the few that could say that he did that.
Yeah. No, I think Baltimore's going to come out in this game, man. I think they're going to punch him. I think they're going to punch Cincy early, but as we have seen with Baltimore, they've been one of those teams over the last year and change that they have not been able to sustain leads. We saw it as recently with Dallas when they had a 28-3 lead. Not 28-3. I'm thinking over here of the Super Bowl. But we saw them with a 28-6 lead, barely win the game 28-25. I think Derrick Henry's going to have himself another 150-yard rushing. He's going to have 2 touchdowns, but I think Joe Burrow is going to have himself a good game. Give me a shootout. Give me a higher scoring game. Give me 34-27 Baltimore. I think, right now.
This is going to be such a tough loss for Cincinnati to swallow because, as the losses start to pile, and then you had last year's disaster with the injuries, they're getting further and further removed from that Super Bowl team. And now you're starting to wonder, what's the future look like over here too?
Yeah, and as crazy as it sounds, Baltimore has the opportunity after this weekend to be tied in first place with Pittsburgh. As we know, Pittsburgh is hosting Dallas this week. And
which is going to be a pretty interesting game.
It's going to be an interesting game, a game that we'll cover tomorrow night. But, Baltimore right now, I think they figured out their identity, which we've known their identity over the last couple of years, and it's run the damn ball. But now you have Derrick Henry, you have the bell cow, you have a good offensive line, because you had the threat of Lamar Jackson running the ball. Derrick Henry right now, I think will he break the all-time record? The law of averages says he's got a good opportunity, especially now with the 17th game. But if he keeps running like a man possessed, the way he has ran the last 2 weeks, the Ravens can ride Derrick Henry to the playoffs. I will say that.
Yeah, it's amazing what a couple of weeks difference this team looks like. I'm still not convinced that they're going to be able to win at all because I just don't believe in Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. He has to change that narrative and prove it. We shall see.
And also with Baltimore, man, I mean, it's not just Derrick, it's not just Lamar, but I got to give a shout out to who's their backup, Justice Hill.
Justice Hill.
Oh, there you go. Boom. There you go. Justice Hill, man, he's been playing great too. Especially the last couple of weeks. I mean, the guy has been running the damn ball as well. And, usually whenever you have that guy that defenses have to focus on, they tend to forget about the other guy, and that's what we're seeing right now. And I mean, this is good for Lamar. This is good for Zay Flowers. This is good for Isaiah Likely. This is good for Mark Andrews. As long as they don't have to get in a game where they're playing from behind, Baltimore's going to be all right.
Speaking of Mark Andrews, got to ask you this. How much longer does he have with this organization? Because Isaiah Likely just looks like a bigger weapon and a more productive weapon and a guy that just makes more sense for what they're trying to do right now.
Oh, man, that's
Mark Andrews looked very pedestrian this year.
Yeah, but, remember, he is coming off that injury. He still has that chemistry with Lamar Jackson. That's something that cannot go unnoticed. And we saw him last week. He finally made some catches. He made some good catches against the Bills. And sometimes, when you're coming off an injury, especially of the nature that Mark Andrews had, it takes a little more time to get going. When I look at Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, it kind of reminds me of Jason Witten and Martellus Bennett. Marty B had the opportunity to be that guy, but then Jason Witten, just when they were going to ride him off, he would come back out of nowhere. And that's what I kind of see with this one, where I think Isaiah Likely is on the verge of being a prototypical tight end. That could be one of the premier tight ends. But it's hard to move on from a guy like Mark Andrews. I mean, he's only 29 years old. So he's not an old guy.
Yeah, he's been in some serious battles, though. But last game on this particular show, before we move it along, actually, Zap, you know what? Why don't we save Indy and Jacksonville for show 2?
Well, I mean, it's up to you. That'll be a quick one for me.
Let's fly. From the former Raven quarterback here, Joe Flacco, getting an opportunity coming in for AR-15, who injured his hip. The Indianapolis Colts squared up at 2-2. I'm still not buying this team, although I do have a high opinion of Flacco, and it's so funny. Brett called it. He'll be in by the end of September. He was right. The Jaguars, 0-4. Doug Peterson's seat definitely getting hot. Trevor Lawrence, they paid the man. They're disappointed with the return right now. And having said all that, are the Jaguars going to finally win a damn game? Yeah, this is the week. Jacksonville 23, Indianapolis 20 in a hard-fought AFC South battle. I think JT and ATN are both going to have signature performances. I think the difference in this one is that Joe Flacco is going to get hit a lot in this. I still think Jacksonville's defense can arrive. They are going to be absolutely desperate for a win here because 0-4 in the 17-game slate is kind of like the new 0-3. Like you're not quite dead, but you better start doing something soon. And we both picked this Jaguar team to win this friggin' division. I like the Jaguars this week. I think they're finally going to get the win, and I'm expecting some big things out of Christian Kirk.
Yeah, this Jaguars team, short and sweet. Look, they have been underperforming now. I mean, we're talking about Trevor Lawrence, a guy that got the contract he got, $255 million, was it?
Unbelievable.
Or $55 million a year, whatever it totaled out to. But yet, this is the same guy that owns two of the longest losing streaks for a starting quarterback in NFL history.
It's absurd.
One of them being 8 games, the other one being 10, flirting with 11. If they do not win this week, we talk about why did Miami pay Tua? Why the hell did the Jacksonville Jaguars pay the long-haired Daniel Jones? I'm sorry, I love you, but I mean, Trevor Lawrence, ever since his coming out of Clemson, has not looked like that guy. And, but I look at this Jaguars team, they are the definition of desperate. Anthony Richardson, he is showing to be what he was at Florida. He's going to show flashes, then he's going to make those critical mistakes, then he's going to get hurt. And again, this is now consecutive years that he's been hurt. And, can he stay healthy? Does he need to change his style of play up a little bit and go away from that running quarterback, not run as much? But I look at the Jaguars. They are desperate. Doug Peterson is desperate. This is a quarterback coach. This is a guy that went from Carson Wentz to Nick Foles and won the Super Bowl. This is a guy that knows how to win, knows how to coach quarterbacks.
And he's a guy that won this division after Urban Meyer totally forfeited the rookie year of Trevor Lawrence.
Touche. Look, the hardest win to get is your first one, and the NFL, with as much parity as there is, it usually doesn't come this late unless if you're the worst team in the NFL. I don't think this Jaguars team is the worst team by any means. I think they've just had a lot of tough luck. That 4th and 1 play at the goal line where they had Trevor Lawrence run a quarterback draw, I thought was a stupid play.
Of course it was.
That left the door open for Houston to actually win the game. Give me Jacksonville to win this game. It will not be pretty, but a victory is a victory. 20-17. The Jaguars, they get their first win. Pop the champagne bottles. There's not going to be an 0-17 team this year. The final team to win a game happens this weekend. The Jaguars pull it off. Joe Flacco, hey, look, you're as old as Anthony Richardson's mom, but you're gonna play as old as some guys out there that we've seen that played till they were 49.
Oh,
Lord. Well, we'll talk about Julio Franco. He's gonna play like Julio Franco this week.
Julio Franco, my, oh my. Part 2, we're gonna be looking forward to tomorrow night, so we'll be able to talk about Sappy's Cowboys, my New York Football Giants. Hopefully Idris will be able to join us. Idris, of course, out in North Carolina, they dealt with quite a bit out there. Also, possibly, I might be co-hosting the Casual Convo show to step up for my brother if he is not able to be there. Maybe I'll even drag Zappy in there, get him in for a small segment on the Casual Convo show. Shouts out John Nass, The Basement Show, doing big things over there. They're coming back off of a 12-day vacation, so look out for them. Always putting out great content and great friends of our show.
And, just to piggyback real quick, a little bit of more of a sentimental part, but hey, for the people that don't know, if you don't know, I don't know why you don't know, but the South is in shambles right now. The Carolinas are in shambles right now. If you have $1, a dime, whatever it is, take a moment, donate to the Red Cross, please, because there's still people in the Carolinas, including our good friend Idris, that do not have power. People are running low on supplies, running low on water, running low on gas. So if you can donate, please donate to the Red Cross, as people are still in need of help over there. This Hurricane Helene took a huge hit to them, and, every little bit helps right now.
Not to mention the farms and other states that were not expected to get hammered the way they did. And listen, I'm all for helping everyone abroad, but charity starts at home. And can we do a little better with protecting our own people, our veterans, our homeless, are mentally ill. The weakest of the weak, the most vulnerable of the vulnerable need to be protected during these times. The poorest of the poor continue to get shit on in these areas as well, and it's unacceptable.
Said it perfectly, sir. Not trying to get political, but hey, guys, thank you everyone for tuning in. Richie, we're happy you got that fixed. I think I did an okay job of holding it down while you were fumbling around with your smoke detector over there. It's always a pleasure working with you, man. I look forward to tomorrow night. I look forward to a couple more games we're going to be talking about.
I actually forfeited my bed. So after a week of not having the air conditioner, and we have these 2 box units over to my left. Now tonight, Noah takes over my bed. So I'll be sleeping in Noah's room. But I'll tell you what, it has some cool lighting in there. He's got like the light up galaxy thing kind of going on.
Hell yeah. Oh, man. Hey, week 5, Major League Baseball playoffs are on their way. NBA is right around the corner as preseason starts next week. NHL is right around the corner. College football is well on their way. If you haven't seen the highlights to the Alabama-Georgia game, go check them out because that was an insane game.
Speaking of college, I might be making it out to Yankee Stadium to check out the Irish. Dorney invited me. I'm going to see if I can swing it.
Right. That'd be a good time, man. Hey, they came up with a big win last week against Louisville, so now they got to ride the wave, and then their last big challenge is going to be at USC for the year.
Last thing I want to say before we get out of here, New York Knicks fans, will you stop your belly aching? You can't take massive craps on Julius Randle for the better part of the last 3 years. Then when you finally trade him, everybody's crying. Listen, I love Dante DiVincenzo. And I know the Knicks, it wasn't their first choice to trade him. They tried to package up Mitchell Robinson along with Julius Randle. But you're getting a guy that brings a defensive presence that gives you a bona fide number 2 scorer. And on any given night of the week, OG Anunoby or Cat are going to be your second best scorer on the court. We all know what Jalen Brunson did during last year's playoffs. Guys, DiVincenzo's awesome, and we're going to miss him. But look what the Knicks did in the draft. And don't be surprised if Kolek is in steady competition to be the backup for Jalen Brunson. Leon Rose has not got anything wrong since he's been making over this team. I believe in you, Leon. Bring us home a championship.
And speaking of Karl Anthony Towns, Shannon Sharp tomorrow, he had Karl Anthony Towns today on his show. It will be released tomorrow. I had no idea that Karl Anthony Towns grew up a Knicks fan. I thought he was actually a Bulls fan growing up, so I'm looking forward to hearing.
Yeah, I saw that interview recently. It's gonna be good. This is and I'm gonna call this ahead of time. If the opportunity presents itself, don't be the least bit surprised if Dante DiVincenzo comes back to the Knicks after the 26th season. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves lost this trade. The only thing that will prove that is time. And I do want to say to Julius Randle, although it has been a complicated relationship in New York, I want to say thank you for putting us back on the map. And thank you for being the first free agent that really decided to come over and take a chance on the Knicks. You helped rebuild a very proud organization that was really suffering for 2 decades. So, Julius, best to you and your family. Dante, you will be missed. You're a fierce competitor. You're a hell of a 3-point shooter. I wish both of you boys the absolute best in Minnesota, but it's time to move on, Knicks fans. We got a hell of a player in return.
Dante DiVincenzo. I'd like to see him back in Golden State. You know what I'd like to see? A 1-day contract for Derrick Rose to retire a Bull and not just retire the way he did. But hey, thank you, Derrick Rose.
It's crazy. And Tom Thibodeau coached him and he coached Cat. And Cat said that the media needs to drop it because him and Tibbs are just fine. To be seen. We will see how it plays out. And we all know one thing. Tibbs, you got to take better care of that rotation if you want to get to the mountaintop. Guys, this is a conference that has Joel Embiid, Bam Adebayo, Jason Tatum. You needed to get a presence in the paint, especially with Mitch being gone until September, not to mention he is on the trade block. The Knicks needed a center. And all these Knicks fans that want to get in their feels, instead of getting pissed off about the trade, why don't you get pissed off at Isaiah Hartenstein? Because if he didn't leave, none of this shit would have happened anyway.
I'll take a guy that can drop 42 in a blink of an eye,
So instead of
whether
getting
from the
mad,
paint or the 3-point line. I
so
mean,
instead of
gosh.
getting mad at Isaiah Hartenstein, say thank you.
Thank you. Exactly.
Julius and Dante, I wish you the absolute best. Dante, I hope you come back in a couple of years and rejoin your boys from Nova. For Zappy, I am Richie. It was an absolute pleasure bringing the show, and we'll be back in about 24 hours. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night.